Wouldn't it be awesome if there was a vehicle that you could just drive straight into the water, then you could flip a switch and now it's a boat, so that you could just zoom around wherever you'd like, whether it be on land or in the water. Now that sounds pretty awesome to me, so I built it. And in this video, I'll be showing you every single step it took to build this amazing 6-wheel, 8-motor amphibious vehicle from the ground up. Then we'll load it up with gear and drive it off-road and in the water for an overnight camping adventure. And not everything will go according to plan, but that won't stop us from having an amazing night full of driving around, cooking delicious foods, catching some wonderful fish, and just enjoying a beautiful night while floating on the water. And it all starts with a big pile of steel punch tubing. It's nice and strong and made of metal, and I already went ahead and painted it nice and yellow. And if this stuff looks familiar to you, it's probably because you've seen it around town holding up signs. But not only is it great for holding up signs, I think this stuff is perfect for quick building of frames, as it's really easy to assemble them, as you can just use a couple bolts and nuts and tighten all the pieces together. And honestly, I have a lot of fun building with this material. It feels like I'm playing with a giant set of Lego. And after tightening down all the bolts, we got a nice strong frame for the base of our vehicle. Now we can figure out how we're going to get this thing moving with some awesome electric motors. And if these look familiar to you, it's because they actually were removed from an old project, my motorcycle camper build. They were originally underneath it helping power that, but in my last video, I ended up removing them and replacing them with some way larger motors as I turned that project into a car. So these motors have just been hanging out waiting for the right project. And not only is there grass still around the axle from the previous adventure, there's still the brakes attached, which is going to make it really easy to stop this vehicle later. And plus, I just really like these motors. I modified them so that they can power one axle each, and they have a good amount of strength to them, as they're each 48 volt 1000 watt motors for around 1.34 horsepower. And you're probably thinking to yourself, electric motors going underwater, isn't that going to be like a big problem? Isn't it going to just shock everything and break the motor? And to that I say, I don't think so. But there's really only one way to test it. So let's go ahead and take the motor, dunk it in a thing of water, and see if it turns on. And yeah, just like I was hoping, the motor doesn't seem to be having any problems at all. These are brushless motors, and they really shouldn't have a problem running underwater, even though I definitely do not ever recommend this, as you should never mix electricity and water, so definitely don't try this at home. And if you're worried about me just driving over everything and shocking all the wildlife, I took a multimeter and probed all around the motor, touching all sorts of different points and connections, and there was really nothing to worry about, so I know it's going to be perfectly safe for all the wildlife and animals. And now that we know we can safely run our motors underwater if we need to, we can go ahead and start to install them on the frame of the vehicle, which is going to be super easy, as the motors themselves have some mounting points on the axles that can line up with the holes in the square tubing, so I can easily bolt them in place. Then to add some more supports to the motors, I want to connect them together from the back of their differentials, and I made a piece of tubing specifically for this for the motorcycle camper, but it's a little bit too long for this build, so I need to make a quick little modification to it by cutting out a small little section in the middle. Then to reconnect the tubes together, I got the neck size up of the tubing so I could slip it over like a sleeve, bring it over to the welder, and then weld the new pieces of pipe in place for a really strong secure connection. Then it's as simple as dropping in the connectors between the motors and tightening them down directly to each of the differentials, ensuring the motors are mounted on there nice and secure. And with that, I think it's about time we get this thing rolling. And these are actually the tires from a previous camper build of my mobile little cabin, and these tires have just been sitting around ever since I replaced that build with larger tires, so these tires have just been waiting to be installed on a new project. But it was at this point in the build where a thought came in my mind. Wouldn't it be so much cooler if there was another axle right in the middle to give this vehicle 6-wheel drive? I think we can all agree what needed to be done. That we need to watch this rhino flop around in some mud. I mean, I went ahead and made another axle for the middle, giving the vehicle 6,000 watts of power for driving around on land. Then to clean it up a bit and make it match the rest of the frame, I took some more of the heavy duty yellow paint and covered up all of those axle connectors in the middle. Beautiful. Then it was time to finish building out the rest of the bottom frame by adding a couple more pieces of tubing along the length of it to make it even stronger. And with that, the bottom frame is complete. And I know what you're probably thinking. Wow, that looks super comfy to lay across. But also, how's this thing gonna even steer? And for that, we're gonna be using tank steering. By connecting each side together to act independently, I can send both sides forward to go forward, both sides backwards to go backwards, and then to turn the vehicle around, I just have to send the sides in opposite directions, which will let the vehicle turn, and it should be able to turn around on the spot, which would be pretty sweet. And now that we know how we're going to control this thing on the ground, there's probably something else you're wondering, because last time I checked, metal, especially metal with a bunch of holes going through it, doesn't really float all that well. So how are we actually going to get this thing to float? And for that, there's a couple options. For one, I could end up making a fiberglass shell similar to my camper boat, and we can make it float that way. But when working with fiberglass, once you build the structure, it's really hard to make some major changes to it. And since this is very much a prototype vehicle, I want to use something a little bit more forgiving than fiberglass in case I want to change the layout of the build. So that's where these come in, some dock floats. And these things are really awesome. They're made of some really tough plastic. They're completely sealed, they're not super heavy, and they're completely filled with foam on the inside. And the great thing about these being filled with foam, it's like an extra safety precaution because if something were to damage the outside shell of the foam filled ones, it's still going to end up floating. Whereas if they weren't filled with foam and something damaged that, it's just going to go ahead and sink. So I really like the idea of the foam filled ones as they just feel so much safer. And most people use these to build floating swimming platforms or floating docks, and they have a lot of buoyancy to them. This smaller pile has 1,600 pounds of lift, this larger pile has 1,280, for a total of 2,340 pounds of lift, or 1,060 kilograms, which will be more than enough. Another great thing about these dock floats is they have these really nice strong mounting points along the top of them that are all lined up on the inch, which will make it super easy to attach to the vehicle as I can still use the steel tubing and it lines up perfectly with the mounting holes. So let's go ahead and get them installed on the vehicle. And the only hard part about working with these is they're just a little bit awkward to carry and you just always gotta watch your footing. But after placing the floats where I want them to go, we're getting one step closer to finishing the build. Now, for connecting up these dock floats to the steel tubing, I'm going to be using some of these really large rubber spacers to add a bit of cushion and to have some space underneath. So I had to get a whole bunch of them. I also ended up getting a bunch of these special washers that are specifically designed to be used with the dock floats, and you can see how they perfectly fit, and these will ensure they have really nice support when I install them on the vehicle. So let's start connecting everything together and building out the top frame. And I really love how all these materials just line up beautifully. I can just use some bolts, those special washers, and tighten them down. And the rubber spacers really let you squish it all together. Then all we gotta do is go around with some more pieces of the steel punch tubing, connecting all the pieces together, and then adding on some extra supports to make a really strong top frame. Absolutely beautiful. But you may have noticed the top frame, it is nice and strong, but it's not actually attached to the bottom at all. So let's go ahead and connect it on up with, you guessed it, some more pieces of steel tubing. And this is really simple. I just go around to all the corners, add in a nice length of it, as well as adding on a couple more lengths in the middle so that when I tighten it all together, it has a really nice strong connection between the top and the bottom frame. And the dock floats are nice and securely attached as well. And I even lifted them up a little bit so that they're not actually touching the bottom frame, just to give them a little bit of space to breathe and a little extra protection. Now to finish out building the rest of the metal frame, it's time to add the last couple pieces, and this is going to act as a nice railing around the boat edge because I think it's going to be nice when this is on the water. And with that, the top and the bottom frame are firmly attached together and this thing is looking beautiful. Next up, it's time to figure out how we're going to control this on the water. So we're going to need a couple of these, some boat motors. And these boat motors are pretty sweet. They're pretty heavy duty. They got some nice big propellers on the end of them. And they have a decent amount of power to them as well. They're 48 volt motors and 1,000 watts of power. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it is. They have the same exact voltage and power rating as the motors that are going to be driving this thing around on land. And I have a pretty strong feeling we're going to find a very similar motor inside of this. And for this project, I am going to be needing to move things around a little bit. Like for one, I'm not going to need the motor controller in here as I'm going to be building a separate box for all of them later. I'm also going to be removing the controls as well as the plastic housing to get this thing down to its bare minimum. And just like I expected, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the exact same motor that's driving us around on land, just happens to be a different color. But that should make this build a lot easier electronically, as I should be able to run all of the motors off of the same type of controllers. Now it's time to head over to the vehicle and figure out a way how to attach the motors to it. But there is a problem. I don't really know how deep the floats are going to sink in the water, so I want to design a system so I can move the boat motors up and down however I'd like. And for building that, I got some pretty sweet stuff planned. Starting with a set of these, some linear slider and rails. And these things are just super satisfying, and I chose this one specifically because it completely wraps around the rail, so there's no chance that they'll ever fall off, and you can also get a glimpse of the small little rows of ball bearings in the center. And these ensure that the bearing block slides super freely over the rail, and they just float around with barely any friction at all. Then, to help control how the sliders are going to move, I got this, which is a linear actuator, and these things are really sweet. This one just runs off of 12 volts, and once you plug it in, you can see the front of it just extends on out. Then, if you reverse the polarity, it will go ahead and return to where it started, which is pretty awesome. And these things are actually pretty strong for how small they are. This one's rated for pushing 1500 newtons of force, so it turns out this thing can push a whole lot of newtons. And in case you don't know what a newton is, that's around 330 pounds or 150 kilograms. Which is way more than enough to move our boat motors. Now we can begin the process of connecting them all together, and for this I'm going to be using, you guessed it, some more pieces of steel tubing. And all these pieces actually came from the motorcycle camper build, from when I upgraded all the tubing and turned that vehicle into a car. So it's just cool, I get to reuse some of that as well. And now we can finally combine all the parts together, the sliders, the linear actuator, and the boat motor into one solid unit. And for that, we're going to need the help of the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. PCBWay is your one-stop shop if you're ever looking for designing custom printed circuit boards, CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, and even injection molding. And for this project, I'm really interested in the CNC machining. And for every project I've ever built since the beginning, I always try to do something a little bit better, learn a new skill, because there's always room for improvements. And for this project, that means I'm going to learn how to draw in CAD. Because up till now, all my projects have been pretty manual. I'm literally just drawing in graph paper, color coding everything, and I laminate the copies before I go ahead and build them. So it's definitely a pretty big challenge to learn how to use CAD. I've never done anything like this before, but you gotta start somewhere, and I'm still super proud of it. Now for the easy part of uploading the file to PCBWay's website, which is just drag and drop, and they even have a built-in 3D viewer, which I found was pretty fun. Then you can pick what you'd like it to be made from, and because my machine's going to be on the water, I went ahead and picked aluminum. Then they'll machine it and ship it right to your door, and mine arrived quickly and came wrapped up like a big beautiful burrito, and I gotta say, these things turned out looking beautiful. Nice and shiny, perfectly machined, absolutely fantastic. There's just something so cool about designing a part on the computer than just having it materialize on your front door. It honestly kind of feels like magic. And I don't think I've ever been this excited about a piece of metal before. This is my first CNC part that I've ever designed, and I'm super proud of it. Thanks again PCBWay for sponsoring this video, and if you're ever looking for custom parts, printed circuit boards, or anything like that, definitely check them out with the links in my description. And now that we got this beautiful custom part, we can finally assemble all the pieces together, which is super simple as I designed it to perfectly line up with the sliders so I can take some machine screws and tighten it on down. And you can see the thing slides so satisfying. Love it. I also designed the plate so I could attach down another piece of steel tubing, and this part's going to be used to help support the bottom of the motor and also where I can attach the linear actuator. Now it's time to connect up the motor to the plate, and for that, there's still 2 more holes left on the plate which line up with these mounts on the motor, and these are normally used to hold it down to the side of a boat, but I'm going to be removing them and installing some heavy duty bolts instead. And these bolts are going to perfectly line up with the holes on the aluminum plate, so I can slide it in place, flip it over to the other side, and tighten it down with some lock nuts to firmly hold it in place. For holding down the bottom of the motor to keep it more secure, I'm going to use a U-bolt as well as a couple pieces of foam that I cut out from some gym puzzle mat so I can place it on the top and bottom of the motor and bolt it down to really squish it in place without damaging the motor. And just like that, our boat slider unit is complete. And since I had 2 motors, I had to make 2 of these units. And of course, we got to test them out using a small little 12-volt battery. And I go ahead and plug it in, and you can see both of the motors are being lowered. I can reverse it to raise the motors back on up. And I gotta be honest, I am so proud with how these things turned out. I've never made anything like this, and they work beautifully. So let's go ahead and get them installed, which is super easy because I'm just using another piece of tubing so I can bolt it to the frame, as well as adding on another piece on the top to really give it some extra strength. And since I have 2 of these motors, the other one's getting installed on the opposite side. So not only does this vehicle have tank steering on land, it's also going to have tank steering on water. Absolutely awesome. And now that we have all the motors installed, it's time to give this vehicle some brains. And for that, I found this really cool case. It's nice and heavy duty, it's got great clasps on it, and it's going to be the perfect size and shape to install all of our electronics for the build, and we got some pretty sweet stuff for that planned. So let's get it all installed. And to help with that, we're going to need a nice strong base to mount everything to. And for that, I'm going to be using some of this yellow cutting board. It's nice and strong, it's non-conductive, and not only is it great for cutting up foods, it's also just a really easy material to work with, as you can just use regular power tools to cut it to the shapes you want. And if you ever need to drill out holes in it, the stuff just drills through like butter. Super satisfying. Then for all of the holes that just got drilled, I'm going to install some of these machine screws that are going to go ahead and screw down nice and flush in place. And all of these machine screws sticking out are going to be the nice and strong mounting points that we're going to attach our electronics to. So let's go ahead and take them and install them in the case. And to help with that, we're going to be using my good old friend Alien Tape. This is probably like my favorite tape. It's just like a clear, thick, double-sided tape, and I just find a use for this in like all my projects. And I'm using it just to initially stick down the cutting board to the case. Then on the other side, I place down a couple more layers of the tape and stick down a 2x4 on top. Then to make it all nice and permanent, it's back to the inside where I take a drill to drill through the cutting board, the case, into the wood underneath so I can place in some large screws and screw all the pieces together to ensure that the cutting board, the case, and the 2x4 are connected together as one solid piece. And now that we have a nice strong base and mounting points for all of our components, we can go ahead and get them installed, starting with the brushless motor controllers. And these are just gonna control our motors. And since I have 8 motors, I'm gonna need 8 of these motor controllers. And they just slot in place beautifully. Now safety is always important, and since I'm running a bunch of these motors underwater, to prevent any shorting and stuff like that, I got a bunch of these 50 amp resettable fuses, and I'm going to be installing one of them for each of the motor controllers. Then for extra safety, I decided to get this really large T-class fuse. This one's rated for 300 amps, and it's going to be running through the whole system just for extra backup. Then, for connecting up all the high amperage currents, I'm going to be using a bunch of these bus bar terminal posts, and these are just going to be installed on the cutting board base as well, just to make wiring the system up a lot easier. The next part to install is going to be this, which is a DC to DC converter. It takes 48 volts and steps it down to 12 volts, so I'll be able to power the things like my boat motor sliders, as well as when I add some external lights on the vehicle, we'll be able to run those as well. And this will just get installed on some machine screw posts right next to the controllers. To help connect up all the wiring and make it just a lot more organized, I'm going to be using a whole bunch of these terminal blocks, which I absolutely love. And since I installed all those machine screws through the cutting board base, it's really easy to hold on all the components, as I could just go around with some lock nuts to really tighten everything down to the frame. We're also going to need some switches so we can actually turn on and off all the different systems on the vehicle. And they're super easy to install in the case. I just take the correct size hole saw, drill out all the different holes, then I'll take some 5-minute epoxy to make it more permanent and pop all the switches in place so that they're on there nice and secure. Looking good. Next up, we don't actually have a way to run wires in and out of the case, so for that, I'm going to be using a whole bunch of these different cable glands. And just like the switches, it's really easy. I just use the correct size hole saw, Then I can just drop in the cable glands and tighten them down to the case. And there's definitely quite a few of these cable glands that need to be installed. And also, I just really like the look of them. Nice and clean. And the last thing to install on the side of the case is going to be this nice quick disconnect switch. Absolutely love these. I've been using them in pretty much all of my projects lately. And I'm just going to be installing it with some epoxy as well as some small machine screws so I can really stick it down in place. And this is the port I'll use for charging the vehicle, and if I ever want to run appliances, I can use that port as well. For this next step, I think it's important for the organization that I go around with my label maker to mark all of the components so I'll know exactly what each one controls, and that really helps if there's ever a problem and I need to replace a part, I'll know exactly what I'm looking for. Now for the fun part of wiring it all up. And using all these bus bars to connect all the wiring makes it super simple. Now for connecting up all the controllers, as you can see, there's just a whole bunch of wires hanging out here. And to really help organize with that, I'm going to be using some more pieces of cutting board, some machine screws, and a bunch more of those terminal blocks so I can make some really nice connectors for it. And these are going to make it just so much more organized and simpler as I can connect up all the phase wires and power wires for all the motor controllers to them. Looking good. Now that we got the controllers nice and hooked up to the terminal blocks, the last thing to connect to the controllers is going to be the signal wires that are specifically for the throttle and reverse. To make things easier when connecting them up, I'm going to be using a bunch of these plugs that will perfectly fit. So all I gotta do is make up a few custom wire loops with those connectors on the end, so I can head over to all the controllers and just plug all the pieces in place for a super satisfying click of all the controls. Then I can take the output from all those wires, which have some nice color-coded ring terminals, and tighten them down to the terminal block. Then all we need to attach to that is going to be our controls, and I got some pretty cool ones. For one, I got these nice little thumb throttles. These are probably my go-to for handlebar mounted thumb throttle switches. They just feel really nice. And I also have some of these little thumb switches that I'm going to be using for the forward and reverse. So I wired them up by adding some custom ring terminals on the end, so I can bring them over to the controller box, feed them in and up through the cable glands, and connect them on up with nice color-coded wires. Absolutely beautiful. And the only thing left we gotta hook up is gonna be the main power coming in, and then we just gotta hook up the motors. But before that, I think it's about time we install the controller box on the vehicle, which is super simple as I just drill out a couple holes on the 2x4 that line up perfectly with the holes on the steel tubing, so I can just use a couple bolts and tighten it down directly to the frame for a super secure connection. And we have all of our switches right on top for turning on and off our different systems, and we have super easy access to all of our electrical components. So let's go ahead and finish wiring it up by taking all the wires running from the motors, feeding them into the cable glands for both sides of the controller box, and then connect them up to the terminal blocks with the color-coded wires. And the last thing to connect up in here is going to be the main power wires, which happen to be super thick. And these things just get fed up through the bottom cable glands and connected to the main negative terminal and main positive terminal of the whole system. And just like that, we got the main brains of our vehicle built, all nice and installed in this wonderful controller box. Absolutely awesome. But in order to power the brain, we're going to need a pretty big power source. And for that, I have this. A big beautiful 48 volt 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. And I've been using these Enjoybot batteries to power all of my builds for the last couple of years, so I know it's going to power this build no problem at all. But since we're going to be on the water, I want to give it a nice protective case using one of these nice storage containers. And the best way I can think of attaching it to the vehicle is using some more steel tubing. But the hard part is going to be how we're going to actually attach the tubing to the case. So for that, I'm just going to be drilling out a couple holes. Then I made some custom little washers out of some leftover cutting board, and I stuck down some pieces of alien tape onto one side so I could place them over each of the holes that I just drilled out. Then I can take some bolts and push them through the washers to the underside of the case. For the middle holes, instead of bolts, I'm going to be using some long pieces of threaded rod, and these will actually be used to later hold down the battery to the case. Then I take some more custom washers, covered up with some alien tape, and place it on all the extruding bolts. Now I can just drop in the square tubing, line it up with the bolts, and tighten it down directly to the underside of the case for a really nice secure connection. And the hope is using those custom washers and that alien tape, it's going to squish it around it to make a nice waterproof seal, as I'm pretty sure it's going to be underwater. So to test out its waterproofness, I'm going to pour a bunch of water inside, and if this thing can hold water without leaking, that means it can hold water out without leaking in. And after letting it sit for a while, I didn't see any water coming out through any of the holes, and there was no water underneath it. So we got a nice waterproof battery box, and I'm super happy with it. And now that we know the bottom's all sealed up, we are going to have to make a couple holes in it, because we are going to need to have a way to get the main power wires to run into the box. So I just install some cable glands near the top of the container. And with that, the final finishing touches is to add on a couple random pieces of cutting board along the bottom, just to add some extra support for the battery. I also took another piece of leftover foam and placed it along the bottom of the battery box, just to give the battery a little bit of cushion when it's driving around. And now we can take the battery box and bring it over to the vehicle to install it perfectly in the center, where I left just enough space to get it installed. And since the bottom of the container has some steel tubing, it's really easy to affix it in place with just a couple bolts that I can go ahead and tighten down to the rest of the frame. And just like that, we got our battery box nice and firmly attached to the vehicle. Now I can take those massive power cables from the brain of the vehicle, feed it underneath the frame, and into the battery box through the cable glands, so that when I drop in the battery later, it'll be ready to be hooked up. But before that, I think it's about time we give our vehicle some lights. And these are some fantastic lights. They're nice and bright, they don't take up too much power, and they're really easy to install, as I can just attach them with a couple bolts directly down to the steel tubing frame. And I installed 2 in the front and 2 in the back. I'm also going to be installing a set of these smaller lights as well. Since this vehicle is going to be like a boat half the time, it's going to need some of these indicator lights. It's going to have a white light on the back, a green light on the front right, and then a red light on the front left. Now with all of our lights installed, we're going to need some switches to control them, and I got some pretty sweet ones. These 2 switches are going to be for our lights, and this switch here is going to be for moving our boat motors up and down. Now for installing them, I modified another piece of cutting board with some machine screws so I could attach the switches directly down to it. Then to attach them to the vehicle, it's super simple. I have a couple holes in the cutting board that I can place some bolts through and tighten it down directly to the steel tubing frame for a super secure connection of the switches. And with that, I'm happy to say we got all of our wiring complete. But if you take a look, it kind of looks like a crazy spider's nest of all these cables, which would be an absolute disaster if we drove it around. So let's do a bit of cable management using some of this yellow split tubing. And this is just like a nice tough plastic shell with a slit along the middle, so I can go up to all the wires, place it over it to act as more protection when we're driving this thing around. And honestly, I think it just makes the wires look a little bit nicer. Then, once I have all the wires covered with the tubing, it's as simple as taking some zip ties, then going around and combining all the wires together and zip tying them down directly to the steel tubing frame for some super quick and clean cable management. And it's looking so much better. No more wires just hanging out everywhere. They're nice and securely attached to the frame, and we're one step closer to finishing this build. Next up, I think it's about time we give this thing a proper floor. And for that, I'm going to be using a whole bunch of wood. And for all the wood in this project, I already went ahead and covered it with some nice heavy duty marine grade wood stain, so it has some nice protection from the water. So let's go ahead and get it all installed. And the easiest way I could think of is to take the 2x4s, and I ended up drilling out some holes that perfectly line up with the holes on the steel tubing frame, so I could easily just bolt it in place directly to the frame underneath. Then, after installing the boards on the opposite side, I can take a bunch of this 1-inch board and slide them over all the 2x4s we just installed. Then, to hold those down in place, I'm going to be using some wood screws, just a few, and I go ahead and screw those down directly into the 2x4s underneath for a super secure connection. And with that, we finally have a nice solid surface that will support our weight on the top. But when it comes to this middle part, since it is going to be over the battery box, I'm going to want to make this part of the deck removable. So let's go ahead and build that out by using some more of the 1-inch boards and a couple pieces of 2x4 and a bunch of screws to hold it together. Then we can bring it over to the vehicle and the thing slides over the hole and fits like a glove. But the top board, it's not actually being held down by anything, and I'd be worried it would fly around when driving, so I'm going to be using a bunch of these stainless steel clamps to hold them in place. And these will get installed with some screws directly into the deck, and I'll put one in each of the corners. And these will ensure that the top part is nice and secure in place, and it's not going to go flying around when I'm hitting rough bumps. And with that, we finally have a nice solid floor, deck, or whatever you want to call it on our awesome amphibious vehicle. One step closer to finishing this build. Up next, it's time to figure out our controls. I mean, we already have our controls installed, but they are just sort of hanging out on the ends of wires. But I want to attach it to something more solid so I can actually hold on to it when I'm driving around. So for that, I'm going to be using this, some black steel pipe. And this stuff is great, it's strong, made of metal, and you can get all sorts of different sizes and connectors so they can easily thread together for some super quick, strong shapes. Then, to make it even stronger and prevent the pieces from ever unthreading, I'm going to use the flux core welder to weld them all into one solid piece. And of course, for the finishing touch, it's gotta be hitting with a nice solid coat of that heavy duty yellow paint to get these things looking beautiful. Now they're nice and strong, wonderful color, and they're also going to be super easy to attach to the vehicle by just adding on a couple pieces to the ends of the pipe flanges. Then I can bring them on over and attach them directly down to the steel tubing frame with just a couple bolts. And just like that, we got some nice strong metal handlebars that we can hold onto when we're driving around. Now before I attach all the handlebar controls, I'm going to take some of this yellow electrical tape just to wrap around the handlebar sections for each side, just to ensure there's a little extra grip and something for the controls to bite into. And you probably also noticed that all the controls I chose for this build, they all have the handlebar mount hole, which lines up perfectly with this piece of pipe, so I can easily attach them down to both sides. But there is one more control I want to add, and that of course is the brakes, because stopping is going to be pretty important. And this is the brake handle that you normally seen being used on an ATV, and I specifically chose this one because it'll fit perfectly on the handlebar I just made right next to all the other controls for super easy access. Then all we gotta do is reconnect the brake line to the brake calipers I left installed on the front axle so that we'll actually be able to get this thing to stop on land. I then took some more of the split tubing to cover up all the wires for the electrical signals on the controls just to add some extra protection. Then I can just zip tie them down to the front handlebar for a nice clean look. And with that, I think it's about time we take this big old battery and get it installed in the battery compartment, which is super satisfying as the top part just slides away and I can just gently drop it down in place. Then, to keep the battery from bouncing around, I'm going to be using those threaded rods as well as a piece of cutting board that I add some pieces of foam on the bottom. So when I place it over the threaded rods, I can add in some washers and wing nuts and really tighten it down to the frame. Nice and secure. I can now finally go ahead and hook up the main power wires running to the big old battery. And I really like how the battery box is still a really nice storage container, so it have this really heavy duty lid I can snap down in place. And of course, we got the beautiful floorboards that fit down perfectly on top and get locked down as well, and you never even know there was a massive battery underneath. And with that, I think it's about time we test out our electrical system. I flipped the switch that'll turn on our 12 volt system so I can test things like our lights, and you can see they're both working on the front and back. And I also test out the switch for the smaller lights as well, which work perfect. Next, we can test out the boat motor lifts. I can go ahead and send them on down, and I can even send them further, but I don't want to damage them in the floor, and then it can also send them right on back up. Next, I go ahead and flip the switch for our on-land motors, and when I hit the throttle, you can see I can send all the wheels forward, I can send all the wheels backwards, and I can control each side independently. And lastly, it's time to flip the switch for our boat motors so we can test those out. And we can send those forward, we can also send those backwards, and if I ever feel like I need to, I can actually run all 8 motors at the same time. Absolutely awesome. We're getting real close now. But there's still a few more things that need to be built. Like for one, a nice little structure along the back. And for this, I want it to be super simple, so I start by attaching down a few 2x4s by bolting it directly down to the steel frame. Then, for the top section, I want it to be super lightweight, so I'm going to be using some PVC pipe and some pretty cool adapters. And for the first PVC adapter, this one's pretty cool. I'm going to be calling it the foot. it just has a couple holes that I can easily attach it down to the piece of wood with a few screws. Then, on top of the foot, I found this really unique adapter that kind of unthreads and turns into two parts, which is going to be super useful for this build as it's going to allow the top to be removable. Now it's time to go around with some PVC glue and attach all the pieces nice and secure in place. And I honestly really like those coupling adapters. They're super unique and I like how I'll be able to remove them really easily. Now it's off to the roof to finish building out that with some more pieces of PVC to make a nice strong structure. And the whole reason I had to make this roof part removable is because it will definitely not fit out the garage like this. It is just way too tall. But the thing is, when you make something removable, make sure you actually remove it before you open the garage, because I accidentally kind of smashed it with the garage when it opened. But lucky enough, the PVC is nice and strong and flexible, so it didn't damage it too bad. But I did end up cracking one of the corners, and I thought it was going to be a complete nightmare to replace. But I learned that if you take a heat gun, you can use it to soften up PVC glue and the PVC joint itself so you can easily remove it, pop on a new one, and you'd never know you smashed it with the garage door. Looking good. And now that we're back at it, the next thing to add on is going to be a nice covering for this. And for that, I'm going to be using some yellow tarp and some clear tarp as well. So let's unfold the tarp so we can measure and mark and cut out all the shapes that we're going to need. And I also thought it'd be cool if some of these sections had some windows. And that's why I got the clear tarp, so I can cut out some sections slightly larger than the window holes and use the handyman's best friend, some duct tape, to stick the windows in place. I also use some of the duct tape to cover up all the edges so I can fold it over to add some extra protection, prevent any fraying, and have some really nice strong corners. Now for installing it on the PVC frame, I'm using a simple solution of installing a bunch of grommets all around the edges just for a nice solid mounting point. Then I went ahead and made all the other sections we're going to need to cover up this structure. And for installing them, it's going to be super simple. I'm just going to take some zip ties and go around and zip down all the panels in place. Looking good. And I'm really liking these windows. So let's go ahead and take it and get it installed on the top, which is super simple. Just line it up with those cool coupling joints and then tighten down the threads for a super secure connection on the vehicle. And I'm loving how this top section turned out. It's nice and cozy back here, should be some nice protection from the sun, super lightweight and removable, and it's got some pretty sweet windows as well. But if there's one more thing I want to make a change to on this build, it's gotta be the dock floats. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with them right now. I just think it looks so much cooler if I somehow wrapped them with something. So I found this, and this is boat wrap plastic. People normally use this to wrap up and winterize their boats to protect them from the snow, and I thought this stuff would be perfect to wrap around the dock floats to give it a nice shell. And the secret to this boat wrap stuff, it's actually heat activated shrink wrap, so that means if you go around with something that's hot, like a heat gun, you can actually tighten up the plastic so it'll shrink and fit much better around the dock floats. I also went around with a few more pieces of plastic so I could add them on the top sections all around the vehicle. And I'm definitely liking the look of this shrink wrap so much better. But a thought did come in my head. You see, wouldn't it be so much cooler if I went around with a whole bunch of this yellow duct tape and completely covered all of the shrink wrap? But then I thought about how long that would actually take. And for that only means one thing. I have to use my secret weapon, the finger snap. And man, I love the way this looks now. It feels so much more rugged. I don't have to worry about the plastic tearing. It's got a nice color to it, and I am so happy with the end result. Absolutely awesome. And with that, there's just a few finishing touches to add on, like for one, the flag. The flag made from the original tarp that really started all of my building projects. It's just a nice little memento I like to keep with my future builds so I always remember where I came from. And this will get installed right on the back super easily as I could just bolt the flag mount right down to the frame. And just like that, we got a nice little home for the flag. And the last thing to add on is gotta be our newly updated license plate, QN09. A beautiful finishing touch for such a unique build. And I am so excited because the only thing left to do now is let's load this thing up with gear and take it out for an awesome overnight adventure. Let's have some fun. I am excited about this. Alrighty, finally time to take this thing out. This thing is sweet. This thing is handling wonderful. And it's a lot of fun to drive around too. Love the tank steering controls. Thing's driving around great on land, but I think it's about time we try this thing on the water. All right, so up here, there's gonna be a nice spot. We should be able to get up in the water. Oh, this thing is so cool. All right, here we are, moment of truth. Water's right in front of me in my amphibious vehicle, and it's about time we test it out. I am a little bit anxious about driving this thing in the water just because this thing is so big and everything in my mind is screaming against me not to drive like a car in the water, but I mean, this is what I made it for. So let's have some fun, drive it in the water. It should be more than enough buoyancy with the floats, and I even got a life preserver because safety is important. Anyways, I think it's about time we just do it. Let's just drive this thing in the water and see what happens. Let's go. All right. I think we're floating. That was scary. Oh, no way we are floating. Oh, that was nerve-wracking. Now, we can go and turn on our 12-volt system. Let's go ahead and lower the boat motors a little bit, get those things underwater a little bit more. This is crazy, it's floating. I mean, it's supposed to float. Oh yeah, we are moving, and we can send this thing in 360 mode. Oh my goodness, she be working. Such a calm day. You can see a bunch of fish down there swimming around, and see a little bit of seaweed as well. And I love how this thing has just kind of, you can 360 if you want, either by doing one side or the other side in reverse. I am so happy we're on the water. This project was definitely an interesting and unique one, and this is very much a prototype in testing the waters. Literally, this is the first time I've taken this thing on the water, and it floats, and oh boy was it nerve-wracking just driving into the water, because it has to take quite a bit of water before this thing starts to float from the dock float. So I wasn't sure if I was just driving right on in or floating, but it eventually just picked up, and this thing's floating beautifully. It has more float than I thought. I thought maybe it would have been a little bit closer to the water, so absolutely beautiful with these dock floats. These things are nice and stable for this fun little vehicle, and the boat motors being able to move up and down, fantastic. I just got to remember to lift them up if I go towards any land or see any shallow spots, otherwise I'll break a propeller, and that would be kind of bad. But I'm super thrilled that this thing's actually performing and working beautifully. But there is one thing I did notice right after I drove it in the water, and I will show you. It has to do with this switch right here. This switch, it felt kind of cheap when I bought it, but I thought it'd be fine. And right now, I broke it off. I broke the switch. So right now the vehicle is stuck in car mode. So no matter what, the wheels underwater, they're going to be spinning with the propellers. If you can see them spinning down there. So it looks like I'm just going to be having it in all the time car mode, which is not ideal, but I mean, these motors will work underwater. It's just not what I designed it for. Pretty bummed, honestly, about this switch. It's supposed to be heavy duty. This was supposed to be their most heavy duty one for current, and snapped off. Definitely have to replace that with a better one later. But hey, a broken switch, it's not going to get me down. It's a beautiful day. The water is looking like glass. We're on this crazy amphibious vehicle thing, and I think we just drive around the lake a little bit, find a nice little spot, hang out, try our hand at some fishing, and just enjoy the night. It is a beautiful day. The water's amazing, and I'm so thrilled that we're floating. Beautiful. And the controls on this thing, they're just so cool. I love how it's like dual handle. So cool. I couldn't have asked for a better day. It feels like summer right now, even though it's pretty much fall. I think it is fall. This thing is so cool. It's getting a little shallow there. Gotta lift up boat motors a bit. Don't want to run into the ground with propeller. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Just gliding along on the lake. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, look at this. Just on the lake. Their awesome amphibious vehicle. I did end up bringing some solar panels. Yeah, that's right. I brought some solar panels, and I'll go ahead and toss them on this little roof spot. I mean, I might as well take advantage of the bright sun right there. Then for charging our battery, I found this really cool solar charge controller. This one's a bit different. It's like a boost charge controller, so it'll boost the voltage of the panels up to the correct voltage for the battery. And this one I got because it's like sealed. It's like a sealed little thing because I'm going to be on the water, so I thought it'd be smart. Oh wow, I can see a bunch of seaweed down there. Thought it'd be smart if this was sealed. And I already wired it up so I can just easily pop the pieces into place. Pop, pop, pop. There we go. Looks like crazy, like a jittery mess on camera, but I'm telling you it's working. And then for the output, I just went ahead and attached a quick connect. And then we can take the quick connect and plug it into this little charging port. There we go. And with the sun right now, we are getting right around 1.7 amps. So I'll get some nice juice back up on the battery while we're just enjoying our time out here. And if you're curious about our battery status, right now we're at 73% on the big old battery. So we will get some juice back on the battery thanks to the good old Fred, the sun up there. Thank you, son. Well, I brought my big old kind of water thing. It is a hot day. It literally feels like summer, even though it's technically fall now. Well, we're kind of just drifting a little bit. I think it's about time we find a nice little fishing spot. I think there's one behind me, so let's go head that way. See if we can catch some fish. This is so cool. You can kind of see how I control. If I hit the left one, we'll turn to the right. If I hit the right one, we'll turn to the left. And we can send them both to go forward. Woo-hoo! I am so happy with how this machine is handling, especially in the water. I was so anxious about driving these floats in here because, I mean, if you look at this machine, it's just like this big thing made of metal. It just looks so heavy, and it is heavy. I think it's around like 1,400 pounds, including myself and my gear, and that's like an estimate, but I kind of added on a couple hundred pounds to make myself feel better with the floats.
So this thing is definitely heavy, and yeah, I was definitely nervous driving this in the water, but these dock floats, they're legit. I'm definitely happy I went with these other than like something like fiberglass, because the dock floats are very modular, and if I decide I like this shape, or if I want to change it and design it into something else in the future, I can just shift a few things around and we're good to go, because the dock floats, it's pretty much just like another piece of kit, another Lego. I can just kind of modularly detach it, stick it on something else, and we're good to go. And you're probably saying, why didn't I just put a bunch of dock floats on like my previous car thing? That thing is so heavy, and that thing's really not made for going in the water. I'd feel better about building something else and taking it in the water, so that's why I built this thing. And plus, it's using some of the old motors from the motorcycle camper, so it's cool. Cool I get to reuse them, and I'm definitely happy that everything seems to be working beautifully underwater. And this is fresh water, by the way, not salt water, so I don't have to worry about corrosion or anything like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and head on to that fishing spot and see if we can catch some fish on this beautifully warm fall day. Absolutely lovely. 360. Beautiful. All right, this is a nice spot. You can see a little bit of seaweed down there. Oh wow, a bunch of fish as well. I think we might do pretty well today. Ooh, pretty nice sized bass too. And then to stop drifting around, there it is. Oh, we got ourselves a pretty cool little grappling hook anchor. These things are pretty sweet. Bloop. And then I guess I'm just gonna kind of wrap it around here, kind of keep us in place. And it's also attached to the boat itself. Yeah, we should just kind of hang around here now. All right, and for the battery status, I don't know if you can see this, we are at 64%, so we actually use quite a bit. I really do wish that the big switch for the 6 motors for the wheels would turn off. I'm sure that's draining some of the battery, as they're just constantly spinning when I'm in the water, not really doing any work. So yeah, we'll just have to keep our eye on the battery status. The last thing I want to do is get stranded on the water, or just get stranded out here in general. But for now, we are anchored off. Let's see if we can catch some fish. Probably should have put on some better rails going to the edge. I gotta be mindful of things that roll, and tripods. I don't want to lose a tripod in the lake. That'd be a bit of a bummer. But I really do like this little kind of back section right here. Super cozy, and I'm definitely gonna be hanging out here when cooking food and stuff like that. But when I'm fishing, I left this big space right here so I'd be able to cast without kind of catching it on the side or anything. Let's see if we can catch some fish. Beautiful. There's definitely a bunch of fish down there. I don't know if they like me. And the anchor seems to be working, which is nice. Kind of just floating around this same spot. I don't seem to be having the best luck right now. And there's definitely a lot of fish down there. I'm not having the best luck of catching any fish right now, and I literally see them. They're all around. They're just kind of hanging out. So we'll definitely try to do some more fishing a little bit later, but for now I think it's about time we make some dinner. I'm hungry. We're floating on the water. Let's make something good to eat. All right, I'm really liking this little back section. It's got the nice windows, and it's definitely keeping the sun off me because it is hot out there, but it feels good in this little bubble. Oof, take the hat off for a minute. I'm sweating. It doesn't feel like it's fall. It literally feels like it's summer. And for dinner, we're gonna be making a nice soup. That's going to have a ramen noodle base. I also got some vegetable soup mix that will go good with it. I got some dried shiitake mushrooms. Love these. They are so good in soup. Probably one of my favorites. Fresh carrot, beautiful sweet potato. And I also got some of these peppers right here. I believe they're poblano peppers. These aren't too spicy. They're just nice, fresh peppers with a little bit of spice that are going to make this soup very nice and flavorful. Let's get to chopping. And this is a massive potato. So I think I'm going to use half of it. Cut off this little nasty bit. Bye-bye. Chop up this carrot. And lastly, some of these peppers. And we'll go ahead and just make some nice little pepper pieces. Oh, that one had a bunch of seeds. But the seeds give nice flavor, and that's where you get some of that heat. Let's go ahead and give a little piece of taste. It's good. It's like really fresh. Honestly, I would compare them to like a bell pepper, just a spicy bell pepper. So very nice. A delicious addition to the soup. If I don't spill them everywhere. And we also got a nice soup mix as well. And let's go ahead and fill this up. There we go. Then for cooking it, got a little gas stove and a little carton of gas inside of it. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on. And we'll go ahead and let this cook. It's always one of my favorite parts of the adventures where I just get to settle down, relax, and cook some nice, delicious food. I chose soup because it's technically fall right now, even though it's really hot outside. It feels like summer. I expected it to be a little bit cooler, but anyways, the soup is going to be delicious. A nice, spicy soup on a beautiful summer feeling fall day. I love it. It's definitely not the biggest vehicle I've ever made, but it's perfect for me. It's got room for all my stuff. Literally making a big pot of soup. I can stretch my legs out. Yeah, I got a nice little sunshade as well. Love the window, such a nice little touch. Ooh, look at that. Oop, I guess I picked up a mushroom and it's in there already. Whoops. The only thing about this vehicle is I don't have good railings for small things. Like I have to be careful about things if they're gonna roll off and just disappear. So that's just something I gotta worry about. But like my big stuff like the water and bags and stuff, that's not gonna fall off. It's like the small things like a lid or a spoon that could just disappear. Starting to smell good. Cooking some delicious soup, floating on the water on the homemade amphibious vehicle. What a wonderful day. Ooh. Bubble, bubble. I think it's about time we add in our mushrooms. Just a couple more minutes to cook these noodles and get these mushrooms nice and cooked as well. The lake is just so calm. It's literally a mirror. You can just see the reflection of all the trees and everything. It's just so beautiful out there. It's gonna be a beautiful night. Oh boy. Look at this though. I think it's time to turn off the stove. Just let this hang out for a little bit. Look at this. A piece of noodle that fell on the ground. Let's see what happens. Yeah, something scooped it, but he spit it out. Not a big fan of ramen. Oh, the other one ate it. Yeah, I feel like after dinner we should get lucky catching some fish. I'm kind of shocked we didn't catch one earlier. Oh, that looks incredible. I'm hungry and ready for some food. Super hot, but this is going to be a tasty meal for sure. That's good. I'm like, why is it sweet? I forgot I put sweet potato in it. I love me some sweet potato. Literally floating around on the water in a homemade amphibious vehicle, eating some soup we just made on it. What a beautiful day. I'm super proud and happy of this vehicle. Such a blast to drive around on land with a tank steering, and such a blast to drive around in the water as well.
I can already tell tonight it's going to be just so many crickets and frogs and everything. I can already start to hear everything around the shore starting to wake up. It's such a nice sound though. These mushrooms are my favorite. Just finishing up my dinner. The sun starting to get lower over there. Maybe hour and a half, 2 hours left of sunlight, which will be perfect because once I'm finished with dinner, try a little bit more fishing because I see them everywhere. They're definitely here. I am stuffed. All right, we got a purple worm, a little bit left of sunlight. I think we can catch something. Oh, it's such a beautiful, calm day. Heard something massive splash over there. All right, well, maybe we'll go try a different spot. Yeah, that might be fun. Usually this spot is really good. Imagine if I caught a monster fish on this thing. That'd be crazy. The anchor does a good job at keeping us steady, though. Okay. Look how beautiful this is. Ah, lovely. Yeah, this might be a nice spot. Maybe it's this vehicle. The fish see it and they just get terrified. They don't know what it is and they see the wheels spinning in the water. Maybe that's what it is. I'm just not getting much luck. No bites. Let's go ahead. Been driving around for a little while trying to fish and really no luck at all. And sadly my battery, it's at 49% right now, poor guy. I'm definitely a bit bummed about that switch being broken because it's letting those other 6 wheels, the motors, just spin in the water. So yeah, I think I need to just kind of go park over there somewhere for the night. Maybe do a little bit of night driving, but I need to save at least like 30% to get back tomorrow. Otherwise I'll be trapped out here. Other than that, it's a beautiful day. No fish yet, but I'm still loving it. It's a lot of fun to drive this thing. I feel like it can get going at a pretty decent speed for how awkward a shape this thing is. It's not really water dynamic or hydrodynamic or whatever. It's not really boat shaped at all. It's more like a barge, but I'm proud of it. It's my barge, my spinning barge. I love how this thing can just turn. All those weeks of work, totally worth it. It's such a nice spot. Something calm about just hanging out on the water that's so still. And I can hear birds and crickets just chirping and calling out, and oh, I love it. Just a nice noise, very relaxing. What a wonderful night. Alrighty, I think it's time to anchor off for now. Wow, with that sun going down, it's starting to cool down fast. It really is. I almost regretted bringing a sweatshirt earlier, but now I'm glad I brought one. Much better. It's getting dark pretty quick out here. I think it's about time to bust out the lantern. And I'm just gonna hang this off of the top. And the nice thing about like this time of year, the mosquitoes and stuff, they're not really out right now. Normally I'd just be getting like eaten like crazy out here, but no. Not even any bugs flying at this thing, which is saying something. And in a little bit, I'll go ahead and turn on the boat light so we can kind of see what that's looking like. But for now, as it's starting to cool down quite a bit, I want a nice hot drink. And for that, I got this little sweet treat. And who doesn't like some hot apple cider on a nice fall day? And then to hold the cider, I got something I'm pretty excited about to share with y'all, and that is this. It's a nice metal camping mug, and it's got my logo on it. So I got a nice cheers on the side, and if you're curious, my dad's the one who designs all the logos for my channel and stuff. He's really good at that, so thanks, Dad. And yeah, so this is like my first like mug or something like that, and I'm proud of it. I think it turned out really nice. I'm excited to use it, and I just want to let you know, if you ever wanted to support the channel and myself, you can go ahead and grab one of these mugs, and just know that you'd be supporting the channel and my builds, and you'd also get something pretty cool that you can drink your liquids from. So yeah, it's a win-win. Anyways, let's go ahead and make some nice hot apple cider and christen the beautiful mug. That's probably a mug's worth. Engage the canister. Ignite the fuel. Cool. What in the world? A wasp. There's a wasp in here. I don't really want a wasp. I'm gonna ask you politely to leave. Alright, come on, go. Definitely getting pretty dark out there, but I'm excited. After I have my cider and the stoves off and cooled off, I'm gonna flip on the lights of the vehicle and we'll do a little bit of nighttime boat driving. I think that'd be pretty cool. Bubble, bubble. This stuff is so good. Alrighty. Cheers. Nice and sweet, some nice strong apple. Can't go wrong. It's definitely dark out there right now. All I hear is crickets and I don't see anything. I'm just on my own little like floating island out here. But I'm having a blast. For whatever reason, wasps keep finding their way around here. Maybe it's because this thing is yellow. It's very possible. Just darkness. But this thing is still really cozy. I'm thinking I'm going to be spending the night on the water. I wasn't sure if I was going to end up going back up to land and finding a spot around the trail. But the fact that this thing is floating so well, it feels stable. I don't feel like this thing's going to have any problems. Like if it would have sunk when we first drove it in the water, and it would have sunk already by now. These dock floats are incredible, and they're filled with foam, so even if there's a crack, the foam's still going to keep this thing buoyant. So yeah, I'm really not worried about anything like that. And plus I'm trying to save battery, so I'm probably going to just stay in the water, do a little bit of night driving, and then probably sleep on the water. I think that'd be fun as well. You can see here, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, and I got a pillow down there as well. So we are set for the night. Got the moon out over there, reflecting off the lake. Got our lantern hanging because I'm about ready to turn on our lights. Oh, this one is the colored lights. Green, red, and then we got our white light over there. Cool. Let's go ahead and see what our main lights will do. Ooh, kind of creepy. We got lights behind us as well, but I can't really see them because of my shelter. And they work pretty well. They reach all the way to shore. That's actually really cool. Yeah, I think it's time we pull up anchor and maybe do a little bit of night driving, night water driving. Wow, I love how you can like see all the seaweed down there. The water's like glass. This is like such a cool thing. I feel like I'm in an ROV or something. I'm waiting to see just like a monster. Oh, I saw a massive fish just bolt. That was cool. I gotta keep my eye on the battery. I could do this all night. Just so calm out. It's unreal. I can see a fish down there kind of sleeping or something. This is just so cool. My little amphibious vehicle. Oh, I'm loving this. Yeah, it's deep over here. Can't really see anything. I squeezed the brake handle thinking it was gonna stop. That's funny.
I think this is gonna be where I'm gonna be camping tonight. I really wish I could drive around more, but I gotta save the battery. I really do. That should stop us from getting too close to shore. Right now we're at 39%. We're ending the night with 39% battery. It'll probably go down a little bit more because I have these lights on, but not too bad. When I had the app open to check the current battery percentages, I hit the throttle and it spiked to over 100 amps, and that's definitely because I have all those motors going right now. The two boat motors are only 2,000 watts, so that should probably be only pulling like 40 amps. So yeah, I'm definitely burning through this battery, specifically because my switch is just stuck on and I got the wheel motor spinning, which is a bummer, and it kind of eats into my nighttime driving. But I'm still enjoying this adventure so much, and I truly hope you're enjoying it with me as well. It's just such a unique vehicle, and I'm still so proud of it. I think it's time to shift things around a little bit so I can get comfy, and you can see how much this thing rocks if I want it to. I like this chair. I think it was a good choice for this build, and I like how you can just fold it up for nighttime so I can kind of tuck it out of the way. Put it here for now. And I got a different type of like sleeping pad. This is like a folding one, kind of like an accordion, which is unique. Hopefully it'll be nice and comfy because I'm literally going to be laying on top of wood, and I wanted to bring something small where I could just kind of chuck it in the corner, so I thought I'd try this one. I have a few air mattress ones that like inflate, but I'm not a huge fan of those because I feel like every one I've ever had always pops, and I'd rather not deal with that. There we go. And I brought a pretty nice sleeping bag. I wasn't sure how cold it's gonna get at night. I think it might get to like 50, which I think is like perfect camping weather. Sleep with this. I'll probably sleep with this right next to me to make me feel better. I'm putting my shoes in my little container. Don't want those floating away at night. That'd be a bummer. The sleeping pad's actually better than I was expecting, which is very nice. But I am tired. It has been a long day, a wonderful day of amphibian vehicling around, and I am ready to get some sleep because in the morning we'll definitely try to do some more fishing. Here, got my fishing pole. Hopefully we'll catch some fish. We got some good breakfast, and yeah, we have a beautiful morning ahead of us. I know it. So get some good sleep, everybody, and I'll catch y'all in the morning. Good night. Morning. Everything has a bit of water on it from, I guess, everything cooling down so much. Even my sleeping bag a bit, but I chose the sleeping bag with like waterproof cover because I kind of expected this. And you can also see there's just a bunch of steam all over the water this morning. Wow. A little bit chilly. I think it's time to get up, get some tea going, and then make some breakfast to warm up a little bit. I decided I'm gonna go ahead and make my tea while I'm still hanging out my sleeping bag. I mean, I might as well be comfy and nice and toasty while making it. And this morning, I'm gonna be having a nice little cup of some lemon tea. There we go, got our stove on. I ended up sleeping pretty well last night. Just a super calm night, hanging out on the water. I did hear lots of noises, just like the crickets and frogs and birds. I did hear a bunch of coyotes howling. I did smell skunks. I woke up and smelled skunks like they were right here, and I looked around with the flashlight. I didn't really see anything. And fish, big fish splashing. I think it was carp. I hear them all around last night, kind of making noises. And I definitely want to try to do a little bit more fishing after breakfast. I think that'd be fun, because we didn't get much luck yesterday, and I'm hoping to get some luck today with that. But for now, we're gonna have some nice hot tea. Oh, that's like the perfect amount. You'd think I measured it. Cheers.
Super hot, nice and lemony, delicious. There must be a slight breeze because I just see all the fog on the surface just keeps rolling on by. It's just really pretty. Well, since I have my tea, my stove's already here, I think it's about time we make some breakfast. And for that, we're making some pancakes. Got a little bit of oil. We'll get the pan nice and heated up. And I always like to make pancakes and waffles and stuff in mason jars, especially when camping. It's just easy. Okay, all you gotta do, just shake it up in the jar. Doesn't get easier than that. Pancakes mixed up, and I even got a little thing of maple syrup. You can never really tell, especially on a cold day, if a pan's ready. I definitely see some smoke, but I also see smoke on the water, so I don't know. Let's just see. Looks like it's bubbling up quick. Smells good. Just out of curiosity, let's see if anything happens. Oh, you see that? A fish did jump at it. I think we might get lucky this morning. I think I got enough for one more. The perfect pile, and we didn't even run out of gas. Oh, this is gonna be such a wonderful breakfast. Steaming like the lake. I don't have much room, but I'm gonna go ahead and just pour it on the plate for some dipping. I actually have a fork today, so maybe I'll use a fork. Wow, these turned out so good. I like using that oil. I just used like olive oil, and it gave a little bit of crispiness around the edges. So good. The sunrise is starting to come up over there, and it's starting to warm me up a bit. Same with this nice hot breakfast. The bird wants some pancakes, I think. So I'm thinking I'm gonna finish up breakfast, kind of clean up, reorganize, and do a little bit of fishing and trolling around. But I just have to be cautious because I want to at least have like 30% battery to get back up on land and be able to get this thing home, because we used quite a bit yesterday. So I can't go around too far today, but that's not gonna stop me from having a beautiful morning adventure. Alright, I think it's about time to clean up this sleeping area so we can turn it into a fishing area. And I can just go ahead and ratchet this stuff right down to the frame. Well, it's a beautiful morning. Sun's poking out through the trees. I just kind of cleaned up camp, got everything nice and set up. And of course, I got my fishing pole because I think we should try to do some fishing on this beautifully calm morning. Alright, let's go ahead and see what we can do. And I've been seeing carp down there, some pretty big ones, but they don't really mess with lures like this. Oh wow, would you look at that. Oh, that's a solid fish. Look at that. That's a beauty. Nice bass. Alright, let's go ahead and send him back. Beautiful. We caught a fish right away. Alrighty, to the board of counting. We caught one. Fish number 2. Beautiful little fish. Alrighty, swim away. Got 2 of them. Caught some seaweed.
Yeah, I think it's time we pull up anchor and gonna troll along the water here. There we go. It's a pretty cool anchor. Let's go ahead and flip around. I'm thinking we'll head and do some fishing right along the shore here. So I'm pretty close to where I came in at, just to make it easier on the battery. The poor old battery. There we go. Just float along here, do some fishing before we head on back. That's so pretty. Yeah, I think this is a good spot. Let's just angle a little bit better. Yeah, I think we'll do nice here. At least maybe catch one more fish. That'd be cool. I believe this lake used to be like a quarry or like a gravel pit or something like that hit a spring and flooded. And I've heard that somewhere down there there's like old machinery that just got like left when it flooded. That'd be kind of cool to see that. I feel like once the sun poked out, the fish kind of all decide to hide away, not getting any nibbles or nothing. Yeah, and with that, I think I'm gonna call it with the fishing. Looks like we're gonna end the day with 2 fish. Well, it's been a wonderful adventure, but sadly, it's time to head on back home. I got around like 24% battery, so I gotta be careful and sparingly to make it on back so we can get out of here. It has been such a wonderful time building this machine and getting it out here, and just I'm so proud of it and so happy with it. The thing drives on land, it drives on water, it floats. We spent the night on it on the water, just absolutely perfect. I really hope you enjoy these videos and projects because they just take me such a long time, especially the whole process from building it to just taking it out for a wonderful adventure. Anyways, I just want to say thanks for stopping by, everybody. I truly appreciate you for taking the time to watch my videos, and if you like what you see and you want to support the channel, definitely check out the mugs. They're pretty sweet. I really like the metal camping one, and I also have a Patreon as well, just in case you want to help support me, because it takes a lot of time and effort and just everything to get these projects off the ground. But I have fun with it, and I truly hope you have fun with me as well. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you on the next one. Onward we go. Hello.